All right, here's the second video in a series of create a logo, a personal logo using Illustrator. And in this example, we are going to take a letter from your name, combine it with a clip art that we're going to turn into vector artwork, and punch it with a brush stroke. So all kinds of fun stuff happening here. So let's get to it. I'm going to create a new document. Again, I'm going to go 600 by 600 square here for this. If you have any guidelines or anything that are up that you don't like, you can go to view to get rid of those. But in this case, I've just got a nice little square to work with. And you're going to start by putting in a letter. So you can either use your first initial or your last initial, whichever one. I did an S, so I'm going to do an S again. And then, of course, make it good sized and some sort of a fun font. I'm going to go with kind of a techno font. And then you can always just size this up so you don't have to mess with making the size the other way. This kind of looks like a backwards Z, but you know, it's going to be fine. This is my beautiful shape. Now, as we've talked about in the past, we're going to convert this to outlines. So this is a shape and not letters. So you're going to right click and create outlines. And now this is officially a shape and not an editable letter. So I can't change the font now because it's no longer considered text. At this point, we can modify this if we wish, and there are a couple of different ways to do that. We've used the direct selection tool in the past, so we could click on any kind of point and then click and drag that point to change it or to reposition it. However, there are some other cool tools that are built in. We've discussed the pen tool before and how you can move and add and delete points that way. There is also hidden under the pencil tool what's called the smooth tool. So I'm going to actually use the smooth tool to smooth out certain areas. What the smooth tool does, and it's kind of neat, will allow you to reduce the number of anchor points that are in something. So I'm clicked on it, I click on my smooth tool. There's like quite a few anchor points through here. So if I use my smooth tool, it tries to eliminate some of those anchor points. And that gives you a nice smoother area. So if you've drawn something and you want it to be rounded and it's not, you could, like right there, you can go over it with the smooth tool and kind of smooth it out. And then that will allow you to round those edges a little bit better. So anyway, you mess with the smooth tool a little bit. You can also even draw out, like as long as you start inside and outside, you can kind of go out and sometimes it'll smooth up. You can also take the pencil tool itself and it will sometimes redraw based on that one. I'm not clicked on it here first, but you can redraw if you're clicked on it and then you use your pencil tool. It'll add on to the current shape. So anyway, but we've done all of that stuff before. So once you've got the letter modified and you have it like you want, we're going to locate a clip art that we're going to basically glue to this and make part of it. So I've already located my clip art, this little computer mouse. I'm just going to copy and paste this image into here. Edit, paste, and there it is. Now this is not a vector, and Illustrator's used to create vector artwork. So if I make this bigger, you'll see pixels. Photoshop documents are pixel artwork or bitmap artwork, and Illustrator documents are vector artwork, which means they're mathematically derived. So this is not. This is a picture, which is how we can tell the difference. If we zoomed in 4,000% on this, this would still be clear. So I'm going to scoot this out of the way for a minute. So over here, I've got my little mouse. I want to convert this to a vector artwork. And this is easiest to do with something that's already in black and white. It doesn't have to be in black and white, though. You can start with other colors. So whatever you choose to use here, it's totally up to you. I'm going to go up here to the top to image trace. And what we're going to do is basically tell the little munchkins in the computer to come out and trace this image and turn it into vector artwork. So easiest choices are either going to be black and white logo or a silhouette, either way. This has like some white areas in it, so I could do the black and white logo. Or I could do silhouette. If you click on it, it'll preview. So notice on silhouette, we lose some of the settings here. I could still choose different ones too. So I could say black and white logo. It looks a little different. You can click this little button here and you can modify the sliders. So you can see here I'm changing things and it's sort of making it look different. So you can adjust the threshold, and then there's advanced settings like corners. You can tell it you want less corners or more corners, and it'll give you like pointy parts or whatever. So anyway, once you get it like you want, so that's fine, then you're going to click expand, which then officially turns this into paths. Okay, so now once I've done that, this is a path, but notice it's still got a white background, and pretty much any clip art you paste in there is going to have that. So it's going to be grouped initially. We're going to ungroup it, And then you have to click off of it and click back on it, and then press delete to get rid of that white background. And so now it's still kind of not connected, so we need to group it back, or as we've done in past tutorials, we're going to convert this into a compound path. So I'm going to select all of it. Well, it's not touching this. And then Object, Compound Path, Make, or Control 8, because your clip art needs to be one thing so we can connect it to this letter. All right, now it's a compound path, so I can go through and resize it or whatever I want to do. I'm going to take this here and have it coming off the back of this, I think, if I can rotate it through. And a little bit further. And of course, because this is paths, you could zoom up on here and use that selection arrow, the direct selection arrow, and move your points. So I could go ahead and sort of change this out. So I could take that one and then take this one, and I could kind of, you know, pull that out there so they're not so close. I'm going to zoom out again. All right, so there we go. I've got my little mouse hanging off the end of my letter. At this point, we're ready to use the Pathfinder, which would be the easiest one here, rather than going through and trying to mess with the shape builder, because there's a lot of pieces and we don't want to accidentally mess those up. So Window Pathfinder to pull that up, and then we want to Union or Unite to unite those shapes. Now, if you did not turn this little guy here into a compound path, this isn't going to work, and part of this would disappear. So if that happens, just understand you need to scoot them away from each other and make your initial shape a compound path. And that's really, really, really super important there. All right, I'm going to do one other little thing to this one. We're just going to kind of give it some other interesting detail at the top. I'm going to use a path, which you could draw with anything, literally. You could use pen tool, you could use pencil tool. I'm going to use a paintbrush tool because we're going to use the brushes panel. So I'm just going to draw basically something that's sort of like whoosh up through there. Now I'm going to move it, so I'm not going to draw it there. I'm going to draw it here like so. So we've got kind of a little path there. And I want to stroke the path, which means I want to use something other than this line as my stroke. It's right now set to a 1-point stroke, and it's just solid normal stroke. It's actually a 3-point round stroke if you look at the details. And if you come here, you can see different settings for that. But you can also open up the brushes panel, which is over here. And you can go to the little library book and you can choose different ones from in here. I'm going to go to the borders one. Well, actually, borders are better for rectangles and that sort of thing. So we'll go to decorative. So decorative has like scatter, text dividers. I'm just going to do the elegant curl and floral brush set that pulls up these. And while you're clicked on a line, what it will do is it will stretch this along the line. So like I can create that kind of a little thing there, or I can create, so I could punch that out from my shape if I wanted to, something like this. It's really totally up to you. You can make it smaller. You can still, of course, size this down however you wish it to be. But remember, this isn't actually shapes. This is the stroke of the line, which is like the outline of the line. So I'm going to turn this into shapes, just like we turned the letter into shapes. Now, of course, to turn letters, you go to create outlines, but to turn strokes into shapes, you expand them. So that's under Object and Expand Appearance. And now see, there are a bunch of little shapes. I'm not going to ungroup them because I don't want them to lose their position. I'm going to make this a different color just so I can see it. And then I'm going to position it on top of my letter. Now again, if I have not made this all a compound path, of course I did this here, but now that I've put them all back together with a Pathfinder, I probably need to make sure this is still a compound path. So I'm just going to go to Object, Compound Path, Make again. It says compound path here, so I shouldn't have any problems. And then I can take this path and put it in here. And you can put it wherever you wanted to, of course. But I've got that lined up. And then now I can select both again. And we want to punch these out of the path. So I could take my shape builder on minus, or I could use my Pathfinder. So I'm going to go to Window Pathfinder, open that up, and I'm going to use my punch to punch out the front. If nothing disappears, I'm good. If something disappeared, again, remember, that just means you forgot to make a compound path first out of whatever your beginning shape was. And there we go. Now I've got that punched out of there. So there's my little logo. So just kind of a simple little logo. Of course, you could add anything else that you wanted to this as well, but I went with sort of a technological feel. Kind of shows that I'm a computer teacher. This just to make it a little bit more interesting. And it's still editable. So at any point in time, if I decided, I still want to pull this in, oops, click and then let go and then click again. Oh, wait, I didn't make this a compound path after I punched these. That's important too. Did you notice that when I started to move it a minute ago, these disconnected from each other? So I'm going to do that again. Yeah, it's kind of weird because each time that you punch something else, you have to turn it back into a compound path again. Again, Control 8 is that, so you can always just push that again. All right, there we go. Now we're better. But so yeah, I can take my little pencil here or my pen tool, modifier, the direct selection tool, and then I can pull these in. And again, if it does something weird, you can undo. You can change these points up here, so I could convert my point. If I wanted it to be a rounded point, I can convert it to rounded. I can pull on my handles. If I decide I don't want the point at all, I can come up here and delete it. Or there's a button here as well to delete the anchor point, and I can click on it and delete the anchor point. So, sky's the limit here. You can do whatever you'd like on your single letter logo that includes a traced item.